I was wondering if I could address Sandra's question or statement about my grandchildren, the only Jewish children in the school. Truly, you have to go to the administration and you have to go to the principal. I don't know if it's a private or a public school or what the setting is, but it's really important that the parents of your grandchildren go and have a scheduled meeting in a calm way, without an escalation happening, right? So before you're trying to preempt anything, right? And so that those parents can get a pulse on how the administration is responding or listening, and that will give the parents the signal on how to respond and help their own children. So you have to start there. And an 8 and 11-year-old, they're going to tell you truthfully everything. That's what I love about 8 and 11 years old. They're very forthright. It's just so lovely. It's a great time to be parenting 8 and 11-year-olders because they want to be safe, and they're also growing up in a time where they're speaking up. I say to some young women that I have the opportunity to mentor down here in Costa Rica as well as in the United States, they give me such inspiration to speak up. So our younger generations have more of a voice. So this is the time for Sandra, for your children who are doing the parenting to speak up. And you can also get on that Zoom and talk to your grandchildren about, hey, what do you know? What do you want to know? What do you think you know? I mean, you're the elder. We have silver, beautiful hair for a reason, because we have wisdom. Each strand is another piece of wisdom. And a grandparent relationship is, always so different, right, than the parent-child relationship. So this is your time to really do something that my husband, Steve, who happens to be on the line, thank you, honey, and I did all throughout our parenting of our now adult children. And that is, we contract, expand, parent. And contract, expand parenting is the moment when one child is really having some trouble, and you and the co-parent talk and figure out where the relationship is with that child for that moment. And then that parent expands into it and the other one contracts. So the other parent can feed the information to the parent who's going to expand on the topic. But you got to keep your mouth shut. It's not about your ego, right? It's about who can deliver the message. Steve can really deliver messages better than I can in some cases, and vice versa, depending on the child. So that's using your own resource and understanding your family dynamics, grandmas and grandpas, bubbies and zadies, right? Maybe a zadie can expand forward and talk easier about something than the bubby can. So use your own resources. Your family, your children, and that in itself is very helpful. Always go to the administration, get the pulse, and then decide.
I was listening to Amy, and Amy is so professional, and she sounds so amazing. And I'm listening to her, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I better say something. Okay, so you guys are probably listening to me and thinking, oh, she's so inappropriate, and is she really in Israel? Right? Because of the way that she's talking and how she was responding and stuff. So one of the things that I want to say, what can keep us sane is humor. And it's a shitty situation. We've got no idea how it's going to develop. But if we can be together, Shep, you said this at the beginning, and this is true. The people that have communities around them, those are the people that are less traumatized. And if you can have conversations with your kids, you do not have to be very sad and serious, even though there's a war on in Israel all of the time. Okay, it's that. But if you can connect to humor, to fun, to life, that is you making a stand and putting up a fight, and your children are doing that as well. And I mean, as you can hear, this is like hugely important to me. Now this is me being serious, okay? We have to be, this is a major resource. that will enable us to cope with what's happened and what's going to happen in the future.
That's right. This is too much for our souls to take in. And so humor is a defense mechanism, right? I scrolled through the other day just watching Elaine from Seinfeld because, her dancing, and I was just like laughing so hard. And, then the next moment I was sad again, but I gave myself a break. And then yesterday also, what you can do, I took the whole day off from social media, and I couldn't do anything about changing it. So I just took the day off, and I counted how many interactions I had with people yesterday via phone calls, via coffee, a coffee break in town down here, a yoga. And I interacted with 30 people yesterday. And I'm like, good for you, girl. So, I'm counting who I'm interacting with or how many, because and this culture is also so different from the United States culture, right? I'm in a culture of kindness. Everyone is so kind here. So I have a little reprieve, but it's okay for your kids to take a mental health day off and just celebrate living.
Yeah. So Liat, who is both Israeli and a Sarasota resident and has 2 kids in the Sarasota public schools and is the latest member to join our professional team, thankfully, wanted to just share some perspective.
Yeah, I wanted to add, thank you, Shep, for the incredible. I just wanted to say 2 things. One is that I think
we can't see you. Can you lean in? Yeah.
Just wait a minute.
Other direction.
There you are. There. A little bit more. A little bit more.
Up here so that I can see you better. Okay. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And I mentioned to Elaine and to Amy that about 7 years ago, in 2016, my daughters were 4 and 6, and it was one of the summers with the missile attacks. And I caught somebody, a therapist like them with this kind of specialty, suggest that instead of, like, they were young enough, they were not in 3rd grade, so that was the age bracket. And they said, look, if your kids don't really know, just instead of telling them it's missiles and we have to run to be protected, turn it into a game. And I don't know who of you saw, I think the movie was called Beautiful Life with Roberto Benigni about the Holocaust and the pretend world that he created for his kids. And I had my doubts, and A, I didn't know if they would believe it at all, especially the older one, and B, I didn't feel comfortable lying to them. But I didn't lie to them directly, and I gave them the information age appropriate when they asked for it. But other than that, we really did play the alarm game, and it really did work. The caveat here is that it wasn't the situation that we're in right now, which I think is like, I can tell you, like, there's at least once a day that I have to take a step back and say, I just can't handle this anymore. And I take a step back, and in different ways. And this is, Amy, where I wanted to connect and maybe offer both strengthen what you said and contradict it at the same time. I think if you're an Israeli or if you have relatives, immediate family in Israel, you may not feel like you can disengage. Like, I went on a run today, half the time I stopped and switched to walk because I had to respond to somebody in my family either in need or wanted to know that we were okay, and we wanted. So you may not be able to disengage totally, but disengage even partially. Put on some good music, laughter and dance, and sing for a minute. I don't know, give your kids a hug. I don't have the statistics or the information or the research, the hardcore research to share with you, but it is proven that hugging one another, I think it was for 20 seconds. How many?
8 hugs a day. 8 hugs a day.
But there's a link, like for 20 or 20 seconds, just releases endorphins, hormones that help us balance our emotional or the chemical connections in the brain. Again, not my field of expertise. This is just what I've gathered as a parent and as a professor at universities, both in the States and here, that needed to explain these kinds of situations and sometimes help kids. I call them kids. They're still kids if they're 18 and 20. Help them make sense of this insane reality and the disconnect between, again, cause and effect, any kind of logical, there's a disconnect, there's a break in the logic there. And the last thing that I wanted to say is with teens, my daughter both wants, really, she's a 15-year-old, she's a 10th grader in Sarasota High. We just moved here, she's struggling to find her place. She's already identified as an Israeli and as Jewish. She can't hide it because it's so clear and it's part of her, who she is and who she came, what she came with to school. Last year during the Shomer HaChomot, I don't remember the name in English right now, she was bullied at school, at a different school, not here. So she has her own baggage of her trauma, but she's torn between, I want to post this on Instagram and Facebook, and then the other day she did something that was similar to that, and then when I wanted to do something, or when I spoke at the rally, she's like, oh no, now everybody's gonna know, and I'm gonna be bullied for what you're doing. So sometimes you're gonna be in that kind of tension, and I just think open conversations and taking cues from them. This is what I can do, this is what I can't do. Not necessarily black and white, except for telling them we're here for you. We don't control the reality. Don't promise promises, don't make promises you can't support, but just engage in conversation and let them know you're there. You're struggling, but we'll find a way to get through this. Might not be perfect, but we'll get through this together as a family. No matter what happens, on the other side of this, we're still gonna be united, strong, communicative, and together. And I think that's true in our families, and I think it's true in our communities. And this is, I think, Chef, what we're trying to do in these Zooms. And I'm so appreciative of your insight.
So there's
You wanna take that?
Haley's question about PTSD and what can teens do. First of all, the question itself, I think, is very important, because what I've already said, that one of the ways of counteracting what happened. The two questions are connected, as far as I'm concerned. And Amy, I'm sure you've got a lot to say about that also. But what I would like to say is that PTSD is according to DSM-5, is a combination of a traumatic event, fear, and a sense of helplessness. Now, the traumatic event we don't have any control over. Fear is a spontaneous, legitimate reaction to a traumatic event, so that's also not something that we even want to be able to contain. The area where all the mental health professionals will be focused in is the issue of helplessness. Okay, and so that the minute that you say, okay, what can teens do? First of all, I don't have an answer to that, but I think that is an incredible question. And that's looking at your community, looking in the schools, within the federation, and finding things that they can do. And the teens themselves, chances are, will come up with some pretty great ideas. So the question, I don't have an answer, but that is an amazing question. And as far as the onset of PTSD goes, oh, Amy, you've probably got stuff to say.
No, I was working with young people who experience the three things that you stated. We have to go to the foundation of, and you mentioned this when we were online before, we have to go to the foundation of the self-care. We have to go to the foundation of how are they sleeping, and how are they eating, how they go in the bathroom, are they constipated, is it opposite of constipation? We sleep habits are so important, and they're so under discussed. So there are some things that you can go ahead and do now if you're struggling with sleeping, and if your kids are struggling with sleeping because of all this. And that is, the sound machine. Look at a weighted blanket. Look at the sleep routine that's happening right now, because if kids are still waking up, I had constant nightmares last night, and I woke up and I'm like, oh, this isn't happening now, right? Nightmares are not things that are happening. It was in your psyche, right? So it's really important to be able to distinguish between what's happening in your psyche when you sleep versus what you're standing, how you're standing. So start looking at sleep, because the lack of sleep affects the behaviors that you're going to see, right? Behaviors are windows into a person's brain, right? so looking at behaviors. So if you can look at that, look at the kind of food. I mean, the things that we were talking about before last Saturday morning happened are still true, right? There's still things that we should be doing. Movement is critical. It may not be a lot, but it's something. A bounce, change a regular seating chair for a bouncy ball chair for a student. Something that makes the body have to do something other than, this, right? So that's very important with our students who are struggling with or living with PTSD.
I want to talk about how PTSD develops and what do we have to be looking at. An American kid, a child or a teen won't develop PTSD. The PTSD it develops when when there's direct when an event directly involves the specific child or the child's family. When can bystander PTSD happen is when we're talking about a child that already has a traumatic history. Okay, so those are the children that you want to look at. But this is not something that in general you have to be concerned about for your children at this point in time. Okay. And the development of PTSD, usually there's stages, which is there's a traumatic event, and then there's an acute stress response. Okay, you see that the child has been impacted by that, usually. And at that point in time, that can be addressed. And then with very young children, we'll see regression. We'll see changes in sleep patterns. There will be some kind of a response. That acute stress response can afterwards develop into acute stress disorder, which may or may not develop into PTSD. Only like 10% of the population of people that have undergone a traumatic event will have symptoms of PTSD. Thank goodness. A very large percentage of people, even without any kind of therapy, manage to find the resources to get through terrible events. But in order to know kind of like what if they're children that you should be more concerned about, look at the children that have got some kind of a background that might be worrying.
If there aren't any other questions, we'll thank Amy and Elaine for taking time in their day. Oh, wait a second. Oh yeah, that was just a thank you. Great. Perfect. So powerful, so relevant, so heartfelt. We're really grateful to both of you and to everyone who participated and for the great questions. We'll continue these opportunities to have direct and meaningful conversations, and we're open to suggestions about topics and issues as we go forward and support each other here in Sarasota and our loved ones in Israel through these very, very, very difficult times. Thanks, everyone. Please take care of yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor. And thank you, Elaine.
Thank you. And stay safe, everybody. And thank you for the amazing work you're doing across the sea.
You stay safe, and thank you for amazing spirit, work, and courage. We love you.